Today we're going to go over self-efficacy and what that means. So you can see the definition up here, but it's basically your belief in whether or not you're able to complete or finish a task. We know that the higher self-efficacy that you have, generally the better you tend to do. So your self-efficacy is not like self-esteem. It's not general. It varies from task to task. So I have higher self-efficacy in, let's say, psychology than I would in something like basketball. And we know that it's partly built on your experiences. So how have you performed in that particular area in the past? And it's also, what is interesting though, is that it can also predict your performance. So you, as, let's say if you're a coach or a teacher or any other person, you want to try the best that you can to build someone's self-efficacy or their belief that they can do well or at least complete a task. Because when you do that, if they have that thought process, they tend to perform better. Okay? So we're going to talk about the 3 different theories of emotion. We're going to start with James Lang. So James Lang describes that we get our experience of emotion from our body. So when something happens to us, we experience emotion because we interpret our physiological arousal, and that arousal varies depending upon each individual emotion. So for example, if a car is coming towards you and you might feel like, a tightness in your chest, you would later interpret that as being fear. Cannon Bard is saying that your experience, your physiological experience, and your experience of like a specific emotion or feeling occur at the same time. So they occur simultaneously. Whereas the Shanker singer is saying that you have a physiological experience and then it's kind of open to interpretation. So let's talk a little bit about the James Lang theory and some empirical support. So according to the James Lang theory, it's our physical body or our physiology that helps us to understand our emotional experience. So what we know is that folks who have spinal cord injuries, so this is an injury somewhere on your spine and it does not allow you to feel certain parts of your body after the injury occurs, their emotions tend to be less intense than before the injury, suggesting that our body's experience of emotion is necessary for us to experience it at the intensity that we do. The next thing we know is that if you suppress or like if you have Botox and you can no longer smile fully or frown fully, you actually experience a less intensity of emotion, suggesting that our emotions are not just something that happens here, but that happens in our entire body, including our face. Okay? The next type we're going to talk about is Shanker. So when we talk about the Shanker singer theory, what they're basically saying is that our body can send us a certain message. So our body can tell us that it feels sweaty palms, like I mentioned earlier. It can tell us that it feels, and I'm going to make sure you can see it. It can tell us that it feels heart racing, chest throbbing, whatever. And we experience an emotion because of our interpretation. So if I described all those things to you, that could easily be anxiety or anxiousness, but it could also be anticipation, eagerness, or excitement. Okay, it depends upon your personal interpretation. One of the studies that has been like a foundational study for this theory is they gave shots of adrenaline in people's arms. And when you get a shot of adrenaline, it's like a lot of coffee. Okay. And then they placed them in different situations. And depending upon the situation, if you were in a positive one, you rated it as excitement. If you were in a negative one, you rated it as anger, right? Suggesting that we have some control